Was that the
Hello.
dubstep version, or was that just my computer doing that?
I don't know what happened there. It's okay. It'll get better. It's all good.
I mean, you know, that's kind of a nice deal, though. I think I might make that music selection next time.
we got meta sounds now. Maybe we should go do it there.
Ooh, that'd be fun. Hey, everybody, welcome to the live stream, the fifth and final of the 5-part Hour of Code robotics. So learning robotics, the real kind of robotics, where the robots do everything you tell them to do, and you're the one to blame for all the problems as per usual, but you get to see it in all of its glory as robots go flying off the cliff into space and crashing into each other, and flipping over and falling on their backs like turtles. It's all your fault.
I'll take the blame. I can own up to that. It's not the first time. It won't be the last.
yeah. That's what makes it fun. So learning robotics is a ton of fun. And what we've done is put that into a learning kit inside of Unreal Engine, where we can simulate physics and give you the experience of robotics for everyone to have. So you don't have to charge batteries, lose parts, share robots with people, tear your robot apart, so you could build another one. Just keep building robots and building them and leaving them around and pulling them out when you need them. So we are on the fifth and final session of the 5 Hour Code projects that we created. And this one is different. So far, everything has been kind of like pre-programmed, autonomous, but now we are going to teach you how to create a remote control robot, so you can control the motors through keystrokes and build something like Rocket League.
Wait for it. Okay, everybody get tickets. Let's do this.
An exact replica of Rocket League.
Right.
In an hour.
In an hour, yeah. Ship it.
Yep.
Ship it.
Done deal. That's got clickbait written all over it. I think that's what the thumbnail needs to say. Recreate Rocket League in 1 hour.
There we go.
Exact match.
One of those time lapse things. Good Lord.
Yeah. So we got Gatlin. How's it going, bud?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah. How about you doing? How you doing on your end?
I'm pretty excited about this.
Nice.
Been excited to see these robots in action. I can't wait to see what people are posting and sharing. So if you're working on these projects and fun things are happening or aha moments are happening, you know, Gatlin and I would love to see it and hear it. So make sure to tag Cleverlike and Ian Southwell. You can see our personal Twitters in our description on the video. Tag us as well. We'd love to see it. So without further ado, we're going to hand it over to Gatlin. He's going to walk us through this hour of code for setting up a remote control for our robot. Take it away.
Yeah, let's do this thing. All right, so let's get my screen up there so you can at least kind of see what I'm working on. One of these, one of there. Here we go. So as Cleverlake had mentioned, this is really it's not so much autonomous as we're going to be controlling it. So there's some cool things that we're going to get into with this one. But one thing I want to preface first is for those of you that have actually done like some actual video game stuff, we're not going to be using a pawn and we're not going to be using a character. We're actually just going to be using a regular old actor blueprint. So it doesn't actually have all the code inside of it to talk to the keyboard and mouse, right? The controller, the keyboard and mouse in this case. Now, if you have a controller, like an actual controller, you can use this for what we're about to do, right? So that's something to think about. Again, I just want to stress that this is not a pawn and it's not a character and it's not an AI either. Like we're going to control the bits and pieces. So sorry, you're still
just saying that you just don't want me yelling at them. Is that it?
I just don't want liability coming back
No
on us. Like,
cheating.
it's still your fault. It's still your fault, right? Okay, so as per usual, I'm going to go ahead and start here inside of the robots town. Where I want to get to is, let's actually close down this side over here. I want to go into the actual maps in here. And inside the maps, we can go to lesson 5. So this one right here is the one we're actually going to be looking at. So we'll go ahead and double click on that. While that's opening up, that was quick. This is the one that we're going to be playing with, right? So the remote controlled soccer robots. So you should see this image on your PDF. Yeah, buddy. So it kind of covers the same stuff in the beginning of it, same old lesson plans, getting started, the starter guide. Again, this is really built upon the previous pieces, right? We're scaffolding this. So at this point, hopefully either A, you've gone through the prior 4, or B, you have some understanding of how blueprints work, because this one's going to be very blueprint heavy. The other ones were pretty blueprint heavy. This one's even going to be heavier, right? We're going to get some really interesting stuff that's inside of here. So we're going to make a goal. Yay. So remote control robots, they're actually a lot of kind of fun to play with. Bomb squad robots do this, drones, rescue robots, all kinds of recreational robots. So RC cars, it's the same idea. Like, we want to be able to build those in the real world. And this is a great place to kind of scaffold up on top of that, right? So we're going to keep scaffolding. It's a kind of a thing. Some of the things that we definitely want to hold dear to us and kind of think about is, how are we going to actually make this work? So what button presses are we going to use? What kind of environment are we going to be working inside of? Now, we've built an environment that's very flat. That will help, right? We've also set it up so that the robot is exactly the same as the previous ones as well, right? I'm expecting at this point, some people have started to create some really cool robots, especially because of the whole sumo thing, was, a couple lessons ago, right? So there's going to be some really, really fun things that are going to be pushed further and further into this. We're basically going to start from scratch is what we're going to do on this one. So within this level, so the level that we're going to go into, right, is our map 1.5. Let's actually do that in a better color. Yay, right there. So that map 1 remote control robots, that's the one we want to actually go into. That's the one that I just opened up here. Yay, there it is. So within this, what we have is a robot, right? And we also have a ball that's in here too. Now the ball and the actual, circle this guy over here. The goals, they're blueprints as well. So they're blueprint actors, just like this is. Again, I really want to stress this. It's not a pawn. It's not a character, right? So we have to kind of build it from the ground up. So let's actually start to kind of play with that. So if we go back to our guide, we can take a look here. So I'm going to roll down here. So some of the things that we want to talk about. So I want to reiterate this. We want this robot to do a couple of things. We want it to move forward. I'm going to zoom in on this, right? We want it to move forward. We want it to be able to move backwards. We want it to be able to turn left, turn right, and we want it to be able to stop. Right? Erasers on pencils for reasons. It's a thing. Race cars have stops on them too, right? So we want that to be a thing. What keyboard presses are we actually going to be using? Or, if you've got an actual controller connected, what buttons on there are you going to be using? W, A, S, and D, while the game is running, are already used for controlling the camera. So we can't really use those. So we have to use different ones. So I'm going to be using the up, down, left, right buttons. So arrow keys on a keyboard. These guys, right? These are the ones that I'm going to go ahead and use to map on here, right? So when we're going forward, which direction should the robot move? Now, I know this sounds like a redundant question, but which direction is forward on your robot? Okay. Like, maybe your robot's a circle. Does it have a forward? There's an interesting thought, right? And how are you going to delineate that, right? For how long should the robot actually move? In this case, we're just going to have it move while we're holding down the button. That's going to be the important part on that one. What speed should it be moving, right? If you have a custom robot, can it handle speeds that are a lot faster than what we're going to be doing in this video? That's kind of up to you. Same thing with when we're going backwards. Which direction is it going backwards? The backwards and forwards, I would at least define it, in this case, the front and back on this being the front, this one being the back, right? But if you've got a circular robot, that might be something very different, right? Maybe you want it to move, up or down. Like, I don't know. Is it going to fly?
Maybe you push your grocery cart backwards.
Are you pulling the grocery cart backwards?
Yeah, maybe you just flip it on its side and drag it across the supermarket.
I've seen some things.
Who are you? Yes.
Things. And then stop. What kind of braking should be applied to the motors, right? Remember, because the motors are what are doing the control. It's not the robot. Okay. That would be a pawn or character. We have a robot. That's what we've got in here, right? How long should the robot stop? Well, this also seems like kind of a redundant question, right? But if we just hit the stop button, is it going to coast? Like, is it going to take a little while to stop? Is it going to stop immediately? Or is it only going to stop while we're holding a button? That's kind of up to you, right? Right. And then what speed should the robot brake at? So I just kind of covered this. Is it going to be slowing down immediately? Or is it going to slow down a little bit of time? So left and right, kind of, you think it's redundant, but it really isn't. These are things that you really have to think about, because if you're playing with $1 million robot in the real world, it's considerably more of a question that's going to be weighing on your mind, right? It's going to be a little heavier. So which direction should the
it's a
robot
good
move?
thing that this robotics kit is free.
Right. It's free
Vic,
99.
kind of like the opposite of $1 million robot. Whew. Thank goodness.
It's a cheap one. It's a cheap, and which is good too, because you can really goof them up. And we've also seen some things. The shopping cart was only the beginning. So which motors need to be moving? What speed do they need to be moving? How long should the robot be moving? Right? So we're going to hit it. We're going to let it kind of roll and coast. Is it going to go for 5 seconds? Are we doing motors for a specific time? Right? And what speed do we actually want this to go? Like, if we're doing something like NASCAR, do we even need this section down here? I don't think.
Whoa, that's deep.
Right? I guess to get out of the pits, we would need it.
Deep. Do they do their donuts and the victory? When they win, do they do donuts to the left or to the right?
I don't know. Well, the other question I always kind of wondered, are the tires built to be stronger on one side than the other?
Oh, dude, totally. It's got to be a thing.
They got to be a thing, right? So
yeah,
lots of things to kind of think about. So before we jump back into there, we do want to talk about one other thing. We're going to add in an antenna on this, right? And this antenna is going to allow us to customize A, what buttons we're going to press, and B, we're going to kind of open up the Bling Box a little bit today. We're going to show you where you can actually get some cool antenna pieces, right? They don't have to be just a simple antenna. In fact, if you really, really wanted to, jump over to your own 3D program and build something over there and bring it in. Just saying, it could be a thing.
Oh, you're always looking for a reason to fire up ZBrush, aren't you?
I'm not gonna lie.
It's never good enough. Like, do you use ZBrush as a word processor? I'm curious if you sculpt your memos.
You can actually, you know what? Let's not go on that tangent.
Sorry, I invited that. Okay. Let me note that for a future live.
Yeah, it's totally a thing, right? Okay, so the antenna, it is just like the motors, and it's just like the sensors. It is like a little component that we're going to add, but it has the added ability. It's got some functions that are actually built inside of it, like moving forward, moving backwards, turning right, turning left, and then stopping, right? So we have got all that stuff that's built inside of it. So we have to access it through that actual component. Okay, we'll get to that when we get to it, right? So let's actually start kind of adding some stuff in here. So we want to go ahead and create this robot so that we'll actually do what we tell it to do, which is actually going to be in real time as opposed to just kind of hitting it and waiting for it, right? So I'm going to go ahead and take this, I'll move this off to the side. So first things first, let's go ahead and select our robot, and I'm going to go and open up the blueprint with it selected. I'm going to hit Control E as in echo, and it will open this up. You may start in the viewport, and it will look kind of like this. You'll notice that there's nothing in here. It's just the robot, right? If we go over to the event graph right up here, so do this in yellow, right? So if we go up to the event graph up here, this is what you'll probably see. If you don't see this, maybe you've opened up somebody else's project, right? So we have an event begin play, just like we had before. And then this section over here in white, we have all of our run motors. Now we've sectioned this off a little bit. So we have a place where we can actually press up to move forward. Now, again, we're going to use up, down, left, and right on the keyboard, right? So I already have this one labeled as is, right? And then we have our section that goes down for backwards. Over here, we have our turn right, turn left. And down here at the bottom, we've actually got a little thing that we're going to use to kind of check to see if we're holding any keys on the keyboard. Because as mentioned before, there's some hilarity that will totally happen if you're not quite ready for this. I think it's super fun to kind of play with and kind of see how I can break it. But we also want to try to make it as stable as we possibly can. Not always the case, but it could be a thing. Okay, so first thing we want to add, we're going to go ahead and start on page 8. Right, and we're going to add in this antenna. All right, so first come up here to the top left, up here where it says add component, and we're going to do a search for BP antenna. Okay, so there's our antenna. That's the one that we're looking for. And I'll just hit enter, and that adds it to it. Now, I do want to mention, again, like the motors, we do want to make sure that this is at kind of the bottom of the list. If it's not at the bottom of the list, you can just click and drag it up to the power core, and that will actually drop it down there. We don't want it like nested in underneath one of these other ones. That would not be good. So just drag it to the power core and let go. And then we've got that in there. So let's take a look at what this antenna actually looks like. So inside of my viewport, ta-da! Now I've already got one built in here and ready to go, but you can customize this any way you want. If you don't see this, let me go ahead and just take this out of here real quick. So I'm just going to clear that. You may have something that looks like this and there's nothing there. That's fine. It's not broken. We want you to customize this, right? Whether it's there or not. So to do that, with your antenna selected over here, whoops, so I can circle that a little better. With it selected over here on the left, because you're not going to be able to select it here. Over here on the far right, there's a static mesh area. And this static mesh will allow you to add any kind of static mesh you want to it. Like I said, bring in some from ZBrush. Just saying, it's a thing. So if we click on this drop down where it says none, we'll get a huge list of things that are inside of here. Now, this is going to seem a little overwhelming, so I want to show you something else. So I'm going to take my robot here. I'm going to undock it. And down here inside of my content browser at the bottom, and I do want this open a little bit. Whoops. Oh, buddy. Because I want to be able to see that static mesh node thing right there. So over here in the left-hand side, if we go underneath content, and then we go into our Learning Kit robots, inside of our Learning Kit robots, we have another little spot down here that says static meshes. Now inside of here, there's a robot folder. So I'm going to open this up, and this is your Bling Box. Look at all this cool stuff to play with. Right? So you have one IR for the sensor. So what you can do is click and drag that in there. And then, yay, now you've actually got, if I can move this right, now I've actually gotten an antenna. Now, if you don't want just that antenna, you can take the horn and you can drop that in there. So now I've got like, then you can actually see that horn in there. That's kind of fun. I'm going to go ahead and select that again. But you could also do something like, I don't know, like a wing. Like you could do some silly stuff inside of here for sure, right? There is also another one that's kind of fun to play with. And it is, where did it go? Which is the shark fin. Am I losing my mind? There it is. Right there. Here's the fin. So we take the fin and put that one in there. Yeah. Now, the reason I like this one, I'm going to just open this up a little bit more. And this is totally aesthetic. But with all of these, you can kind of like change like the way they feel and they look, right? So I want something that's kind of sleek. So I can put that in there and drop it so it's just barely intersecting with it.
Oh, nice. That's like a limo right there.
Right? Yeah, like it's got that
cool
feeling.
Limo antenna.
I always feel like SUV, but yes, limo is much more fancy. Right. So now I've got a physical object on here that I can actually kind of change as my antenna. Right. By the way, you can also change the materials. What? I'm not going there right now, but
Stay tuned for a future video.
Yeah. This might be the last one in the lessons, but it's not the last one in the learning.
Yes, indeedy.
Totally. Okay. So from here, what we need to do is go back into our event graph because we want to start coding this antenna so it starts talking to our robot. So to do that, from our event begin play, we need to tell this actor, this blueprint, to start listening for key commands. Okay. So to do that, what we're going to do is from our event begin play, I'll zoom in on this. I'm going to left mouse click on this pin and pull out a wire. And when I let go, I'm going to type in enable input. Find it down here at the very bottom of the list. So we're going to enable input on this one. Well, we have a couple of other pins here. So what is the target? The target is ourself. That is this blueprint. It is this remote robot. That is the target. So as self, that's good to go. The controller, now who is the actual controller? In this case, it's going to be the player controller. And what that is basically, in this case, a very generic, like whatever input we're actually giving it, right? So to make that happen, I'm just going to pull a pin off of here. And we want to get that generic one. So we'll just say get player controller. We want this first one, this get player controller. Click on there. Boom. There we've got it. Right? So this will set up our ability, let's go ahead and compile this, for our robot to be listening because we've got that antenna on it too, right? So next, let's actually start setting up how we're going to run our motors. So that, let's scroll through here. I'll actually bring this over so you can see exactly where I'm at. So I'm on page 12. So page 12. And you can see we're going to start to drag in our antenna. So let's go ahead and move that over. and we need to bring in our antenna. So I'm going to click and drag this in here. And we can drag multiples of this, and we'll start to do that here in a minute. You'll see what's happening. So this antenna has the functions that we need inside of it. Remember this? These functions are what we're going to start pulling. So to move forward, we're going to need this move forward one. So that's easy enough to grab. So from our antenna, I'm just going to click and drag off that pin, type in move forward. See, we have a move forward function. Boom, just like that. Let's take a look at this before we go anywhere. We see we have a target. The target is the antenna. That is this antenna, right? And we have a speed. Ooh, well, how fast do we want to get this thing to move forward, right? So we have, in this case, is a little bit different than what we were working with prior. If we put a positive value in this, the robot's just going to go forward. If we put in a negative value, the robot's going to go backwards. Okay. I want that to sink in because it's a little bit different from the other one. In this case, positive will always go forward because what it's going to be doing is driving both of the wheels in this case. This is a little bit different because this antenna has got some code that's written in it that already takes care of that negative positive issue that we had in the previous videos.
So it's making some assumptions that you do have a two-wheeled robot where the motors are 180, and it's kind of solving for you what forward means and what backward means. So then we can just kind of simplify that into a more simple command. Now, if you start building a robot with different kinds of motors, different kinds of movement, then you'll be on your own where you would have to kind of bring those motors in. But this is a nice way to start with the kind of the base vehicle that's created for you.
Right. And as you start to build those other ones, you can dig further and further into these functions and kind of see how they're working. We're not going to have time. That's definitely outside of the scope for this, but we want you to be aware that in this case, forward is positive, negative is backwards. And I'm going to blow your mind here in a minute and totally mess with you, but that's where this is coming from. So now we need to actually set up the key command that we're actually going to be using on the keyboard to tell it to move forward. So to do that, I'm just going to right click and I'm going to type in the word up. What I'm looking for specifically, let me zoom in on this, is this keyboard events. You can see under keyboard events, I've got page up and up. What I'm looking for is up because that is the up arrow on the keyboard. We can use any key on the keyboard that you would like or anything on your controller. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute, but I want to get this hooked up first. So with up selected, we'll go ahead and drop that in there. And then we get our little red event. So when we press up, we're going to move forward. So let's give this a value. It's totally up to you how fast you want this to run. I'm going to go ahead and use 20 million. Can we get that many zeros in
Sorry, I just channeled the head of the people that are watching this. Yeah, there you go. How wide is your screen? How long does this text box
How far
expand?
can you go? You can only actually go so far. So let's do 20.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? Okay. So the other assumption that we're making is that when we type in a negative value, it's going to cancel this one out, right? So we're going to take our move forward, and I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it, hit Control W in Unreal 4, and Unreal 5, it's Control D. And then I'm going to say, when we release this, we're going to set this as a negative 20. Okay, and you'll see why this is going to be important in a little bit. We're going to take and make sure that we've got our antenna actually connected to the target, like so. So this is all of the code that we need to make our robot move forward. And when we let go of the button, it's going to reverse that by taking that speed away. So we're going to say, hey, let's start at 20. And then when we let go of it, we're going to say, oh, remove that 20 from that speed value. Okay, so we'll compile and save. So let's move this off to the side. So you all get a chance to kind of see this. Let's make sure that I am actually, no debug object. Perfect. Let's make sure that we actually select that one. BPC robot remote is the only one that's in there. It's selected. Cool. So there's that. Compile, save that. And then over here, let's give ourselves a little bit more room to work, right? So I'm going to press play. Now, before I can actually get this robot to move, I don't know if you're going to see this on the recording, but my cursor, I can actually move my cursor and it's not moving the camera. Now, if I click inside of here, I'm pretty sure you can still see my cursor, but I can't. And now I can actually move the camera. So if I use ASDW, you can see I can move around with the camera. But if I press up on the keyboard, you can see that my robot actually moves forward. And while I'm holding it, it moves forward. You can see it firing down there. And when I let go, it's going to remove that and then it's going to stop. Right? So now I can move forward. Now, if I try and use the other arrows, so right, left, and down, you can see that it's still controlling the camera. It's because we haven't bound those ones yet. Right? So moving forward, moving up, and then when I let go, he'll stop. It's exactly what we want so far. So I'm going to hit escape
Nice.
and we're good to go. So there's our move forward. Yeah, buddy, making progress. So our next section, I'll bring this over here so you can see this. So we've got our up. So now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and use our the down to move this backwards. And if you're looking at this, you're like, what's this up right here? Well, let me show you what's going on. So this is where I'm going to show you where you can kind of customize what buttons you're going to be using on here. So I'm going to take my up. I'm going to hold control and also select the antenna, right? And I'm going to move my cursor down here below and hit control W and it'll duplicate those ones down here because we're going to need these ones as well. You'll also notice that this has got a little bit bigger of a box. We're going to get to that in a minute too. Okay, so we don't want this to be up. We want this to be down. So with this node selected, check this out. Up here, we've got a little spot that says input key. So I can change this by clicking on this little button right here, right? If I click on that, and now it's turned yellow. And if I click a key on the keyboard, it's going to assign it to that button. So if I press down, hey, it's set to down. Now if I grab my controller here, right? So if I click that and I do something like, oh, I don't know, let's go ahead and use the O key on, I've got a PlayStation controller here. So I hit O, and it's gamepad right. So now it's that button. So that would actually make my robot go backwards. So I don't want that. I want to use the keyboard and mouse for this. I'm going to go ahead and change that back to down. So yeah, you can totally customize this any way you want. Say you've got a MIDI controller, that could be really entertaining.
Whoa, yeah. You play a little chopsticks and have your robots going all over the place.
We could actually get it to move. This is totally a tangent. We could actually get it to move based on the audio that's actually running through it too. Just saying. There's some lessons in the Unreal Learning portal stuff and community that can show you how to do that.
Maybe how you move your face. You make like a grimace and it'll go forward. You make a shocked face, it'll stop. Wink one eye.
The people in the background, like you shout and it starts to go faster.
Go!
Oh my god! You imagine the cacophony in your classroom.
Yeah,
with that? Oh my god,
yeah, right.
Amazing.
That's not going to work. Yep.
That's fantastic. Anime convention would have nothing on me. All right, so loud. All right. So, anyways, so now what we're going to do is we're going to from our antenna. Now, remember we said we want this to be a negative number to stop it. So we can't go backwards by using these nodes. That's why we have, if I click and drag off of here, we'll say backwards. Move backward, right? So you type in move backward or just backward. That would do too. So I'll put that on there. So now we have another one of these. So let's go ahead and connect our pressed and I'll select this one. I'll go ahead and duplicate it, put it down here below and released. And let's set this to the same value. So that one was positive 20 above. This one was negative 20 down here. So here's where it gets a little bit interesting because we have this extra space over here. With inside of our antenna, there's some code that we have to actually access. Let's make sure this is connected as well. So inside of here, and this is on page, make sure I'm on the right one here. So page 18 at the very top of it. From our antenna, we need to pull out a wire. Okay. And we need to set polarity.
Ooh.
And then when we let this go, we need to reset that polarity. And what we want to set this to is just +1. Because within our antenna, there is a polarity vector that we need to be able to access. So I'm going to just bring this up like so, right? So this
love those reroute nodes. How do you get those again?
Oh yeah, the reroute nodes. So if you want one of these, just double click on a wire and you get a new one. If you don't want that one there, but you want to keep the wire still attached, hold shift and hit delete. And you can just get rid of that reroute pin, right? Because if you select it and just hit delete, it's going to get rid of the wire, which we don't want. So I'm going to undo that. There we go.
Nice. Love those.
Cool. And you may be asking, why don't we have this up here at the top in our up? And the reason that we don't have it up there is because this one is already setting it to 1. And then when we go to run backwards, it actually sets the polarity to -1. So after we let go of it, we need to reset that polarity to +1. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So yeah.
Also reasons.
Big. Also reasons. Yeah, there's some reasons. So like I said, you can dig pretty far in here to find that, right? Okay. So now that we have that, we can actually pretty much do the right and the left. So let's go ahead and grab our down and our antenna here. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it here. And I'm going to need another set here. So I'm going to duplicate it, set it there as well. And then from our antenna, I'm going to go a little quicker for these because we already explained what we need to do. But in this case, we're going to say turn right. and actually just turn R will give us what we're looking for, right? And let's go ahead and duplicate that, and pressed, and released. Oh, missed it by a pixel. There we go. And then antenna inside of there. And again, we're going to leave this at 20 and negative 20. Now, if you watch my previous video or the previous video on this, you notice that I created variables for this. Totally a thing you can do inside of here too. I'm just doing a little bit longhand. Right? Now we don't want this to be down, right? Because we're going to the right. So we'll click on our little button over here, choose that right. Let's go ahead and compile and save because I've done a little bit of work. Then over here, we want one that goes left. So turn L, right in, duplicate that one. Our pressed and our released, and our speed again is going to be 20 and negative 20. Connect our antenna here like that. Compile. So boom. Told you it was going to be a little bit heavy on this, but that's so easy. Like that's exactly what you need right there. Not a whole lot to it. So next up, we need to, I'll actually show you what's going to go wrong first. So let's go ahead and save this. So you're like, cool, I've got everything set up. I can play the game, right? So if we go back into our game, zoom in here a little bit, I'm going to hit play and then make sure that I click inside the viewport. So if I press up, we go forward. I've let go of everything. Okay. Press backwards. Whoa, 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 whoa. Right? What was that all about? Right? So let's hit backwards again. Well, something terrible is going on, right? So if we can also test, if we go to the right, oh, make sure we click in there. Right. Hey, that works. To the left. Oh, I forgot to bind that one. Haha. And this is why we test these things. Down. Aha. So I was actually giving it. That's entertaining. That's why I was freaking out. Look at all that. They're all that information is coming from down.
Yeah.
Thank you for your tips in the comments, but you're a little late. So we're gonna go left. Right? Because you're like, wait. All right, so
you were doing the boost. That I know that's what that was. You picked up a boost. You were getting ready to do an aerial and tap that one right in the goal.
Yeah, that's in another video.
And we're gonna play some Rocket League after this. I'm totally pumped.
So forward works. Backwards is now working. I'm gonna let go completely. Right? Nothing's touching the keyboard. Now if I press right, go to the right. Excellent. We go to the left. Yay, we go to the left. So let's talk about something else that's kind of entertaining. So if we were watching this code, this is where having two screens is really helpful. Come here, over here, right? And make sure that I'm still debugging that robot. Perfect, cool. So we'll play and we'll turn this and up. You can see it goes up, down is actually firing down, left is firing the left one, right is firing the right one. But what happens if I hold up and right? See, they're both firing, it's going a little faster, right? So what if I go backwards and left? Yay, but it spins a little faster. But what if I were to do something like, let's see if I can actually get a better shot of this. So right and left, and then I let go of left and then let go of right. Okay, that seems to work. And this is going to be kind of confusing, but this is kind of something you want to do. You want to kind of test everything. So let me hold all four of them and then just let go. Now I'm not holding on to anything at this point. I've let go of everything, and you can see the robot is still working. So this is the problem because we're starting to get cross code that's actually firing through this, and then antenna's going, I'm already got information. I'm starting to add 20 plus 20, and then I'm subtracting 20, and then I'm adding another 20, but then I let go of this, and I've already let go of that one before. So you start to get these numbers that begin to add up, which is really what we're doing. We're just taking speed 20, and if we add another 20 to it, obviously we're running at a speed of 40, right? Because we would be holding up and right, that would give us a total of 40. So we start to get this cross math that's actually happening inside of here. We're not going to go too far into it, but let's talk about how we can actually fix it. So what we're going to do is, if you look on page, let's go down here. Yep. Okay, so the bottom of page 23. So to our stop motor and reset the variables that are actually inside of here. So we want the game to constantly checking whether or not we're actually holding a button. So what we're going to use is something called an event tick. So I'm going to right click, event, whoops, tick. So the very one here at the very top. Now I will warn you, if anybody that's watching this that plays games, are like, be sparing with this because it's constantly running math in the background. So it can get a little bit heavy. So if your machine starts to kind of chug at this point, it's probably because of this, right? So you can actually change how often this thing fires. Let me know if you all want a video on that. I'm not going to cover it right now, but totally a thing you can do. So next up, what we're going to do is we want to go ahead and check to see if the controller or the keyboard is actually got any buttons pressed down on it. So how did we do that before? If we come up here, we need to get that controller. So let's just select that one and we'll hit Control W down here. And now we have our controller. The next thing we need to do is check to see if any key is actually still being held down. So from our return value, pull a wire off and say is input key, space key down. This is what I'm looking for here. We'll get this very interesting little node right here. Hey, look at that. There's like this little button thing right here. But this looks familiar. Well, let's use the any key. I know that sounds funny.
Where is that?
The any key. What? I don't have an any key. So let's drop this down. And if you actually type in any, you will find the any key.
Wow, you found it.
It's on any keyboard. You can find any key. Very, very specific ones, right? So what we want to do is the controller holding anything down? If it's not, we're going to look for a not Boolean. We're going to drop this into an if statement or a branch, right? And then from here, branch or if, give us our branch, we're going to check this against our tick, right? So this is actually a good way to kind of reduce how many calculations are going, because this one is constantly running, but if it's not true, then it won't really matter. It's just going to stop right there. So now that we have that in there, so I'm now on page 26. We need to get the antenna. So let's go ahead and grab our antenna and drop that in there. And from the antenna, we need to go ahead and stop the motors. So if any key is not pressed, if that is true, we're going to stop all the motors. In layman's term, when you let go of it, it's going to stop the motors. That's really what it's doing. But the other thing that we have to worry about is just to double check to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to. We're going to take the motors that are inside of our antenna and we're going to turn them completely off, right? So this will stop the motors, but just in case, we're going to double stop them. So from the blueprint antenna, we're going to drag out of here and we're going to search for speed A. We're going to set speed A. So this one right here. And we're going to set that at 0. So we don't have to change anything in there. We'll just leave that there. And we're also going to get speed B. Oops. We're going to set speed B. All right. Whoops. Oh, come on now. Play nice. There we go. We'll connect that up there. Right. So as mentioned before, our antenna's got a lot of code that's inside of it. We've got our motors, we've got our speeds, we've got how fast we're moving, like all of that stuff exists inside of there. So let's compile and save. Okay, so now if we take a look at this, we want to untest it. And so at this point, we're on exercise 4 on 28. So we've pretty much kind of got everything in there and making it work the way we want to, but let's double check. So I'm going to play, make sure that I click inside of my viewport. If I up, and I'm going to hold up and down and left and right, you can see it's kind of doing anything. Now when I let go, ta-da! Nice. You can see down there at the bottom, check this out. You can see the tick is actually firing and it's saying, hey, by the way, there's nothing actually being pressed right now. So I'm going to shut the motors off. I'm going to set all their speeds to 0. So yay, it's doing what we want. It's exactly what we're looking for. Go ahead and stop that. So at this point, we're doing on time. Oh, we're doing all right on time. We could actually come in here and actually create those variables or that variable that actually lives inside of here. And we can actually use that to kind of control things without having to come all the way back into our blueprints. So let's make that happen really quick. So I'm just going to right click on this and say promote to variable. And there's our speed, right? And then make sure that we compile it so that we can actually check that it's at 20. Perfect. And we can take this speed, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to multiply it by a float. And we can set this one to -1, right? And then we'll connect that one into our speed down here. So this is where things start to get a little bit more spaghetti-like. So we can put that there, and we can put that one there, right? So then we could take all of these and then connect them all up down below too, right? So if we do that, we'll just go ahead and duplicate that one, connect these guys in here. And this is going to take a minute, but it'll make it worth it in the long run. It's going to be so ugly, so ugly. Whoop, don't need one there.
So Control W is duplicate, or also wooplicate, but in Unreal 5,
Yes.
it's Control D, you say.
Yes, which is nice.
So if you're using Unreal 5, don't yell at us. We're in
There.
Unreal 4 at this moment.
Whoops, come here, little node. Play nice. There we go. Compile, save that one. Now, if I want to actually access this while I'm inside the game, I need to make sure that the speed is actually public. So that little eyeball that's right here, say boop, and click on that one. For those that are interested, it is actually this checkbox right up here too. Instance editable is what this is actually doing. Right, so compile. Now, if we take this, actually, I don't need this at all. I'm just going to take it off screen. If I select my robot, you will see I now have a speed value over here. So if I change this to something like, I don't know, 100, because I know you've been asking for this. Everybody has, right? So now if I hit up, look at that, wheelies.
Oh, he shoots, he scored. Oh, nice, dude. Donuts on the soccer field.
Woo.
Yeah, we're talking, that grass is real slick. Those tires are having.
Yeah, I like it's trying to catch.
I mean, this is actually more Rocket League right here.
Right? That's the
I
speed
think
that
you
we
may have
want.
nailed it. And that's all it took, folks. 41 minutes to recreate Rocket League.
Yay, ship it.
There
There are a few Easter eggs that are kind of inside of here too as well. The ball and the goal actually talk to each other. So when you make a goal, something will happen. Wah, wah, wah. Be super silly. You can actually kind of set up a second player. We got you started, but it's not perfect because code does silly things. If you actually go into your blueprints and then go into your robots and then go into our robot 5 or lesson 5 here, you'll see that there is another robot that you can actually drag out here. There it is right there. Boom. And this one actually has a camera behind it too, which is super fun to kind of set up. If you actually play this with this other one, so I can use my arrow keys, I can control this one, right? And if I use J, K, L, and I can actually control this other one. Now this one's going much slower because of the way I set it up, right? You'll also notice it's very customized.
and
Just like
needs a little
right.
Needs a little work. But
so
it's going.
What this means is that you can actually get in here with a couple people and play with things. There are a couple little interesting things that happen, right? Because these aren't pawns and these aren't characters, and it's taking all of its information from the keyboard. So that's a thing, at least with these ones, right? Something else I want to point out here real quick too. So up here at play, I've just been hitting the play button, but if I actually change this down here to simulate, right? What ends up happening is now I can actually keep that camera. Whoops, gotta use the right buttons here. Oh, I gotta click in there too. There we go. So in here, now I can actually, are you gonna fight me today? You're gonna fight me today. Oh yeah, look at that. Simulate won't let me actually do that. What if I possess it? Here we go, now it's gonna do it. Oh, this one doesn't have that simulate trick on it. I'm thinking about the other one. Okay, sorry. Bad. But you can watch them on the Jumbotron.
Yeah, the Jumbotron.
Yay.
That was a cool touch on that world. Gatlin is a master world builder.
I try. It's fun. Yay. So
I think the more impressive thing is kind of like to see the limited scope of assets that you have access to and what you do with them. That's awesome. You'll have to run a master class on that.
It's definitely entertaining. Like there's something that's very joyous about finding an asset and then finding some way to set this back to what it was. Finding a way to like make it not be that thing that it is, right? Like this case in point, like that is totally a shark fin, right? But now it's not a shark fin anymore. Like you can turn it into whatever you kind of want. And there's some really crazy things you can do with this stuff. So as you're building your robots, you may have noticed, let's play here. This one, click in the viewport. I always forget about that, right? This one's going to have kind of a hard time pushing that all around because it doesn't have any little like feeler pieces on it, where this one, get this one moving here, right? This one's got a couple of little antenna things on the front of it, right? So when it comes to customizing these, like an insurance commercial, I feel
like Marco's backpack.
You can do all this kind of cool stuff, right? Let's open up this robot here and let's show you where the Bling Box is. I want to show you where it is, at least at the very minimum, right? How much time have we got in here?
Yeah, we're at 45 minutes in.
Okay, cool. So we've got some fun stuff in here. So we had grabbed it. We grabbed that antenna that was in there, right? So if we go into our static meshes into our robot, we have all these little cool pieces that are in here. And there's some really fun ones that are in here. Like this stuff is just like, it's just pretty. Like it's just a lot of fun to play with. I really like it. But you don't have to use it like, okay, here's a really good point. This is a wing. Like it feels like a wing, right? Well, what if you were to go through, and let's go into my merge actors here, and let's open up this one, right? Check this out. This shape right here. It's the top half of that wing, or sorry, the bottom half of that wing is just turned upside down, right? So you can come up with some really clever ways to come through and like build really interesting little things. Like I was like, oh, I need little hands, right? I need, oh, it's cute little hands, right? And then like this whole face piece, like that one is built. Let's go into our robot here, right? It's built out of, where did you go? This one right here. I just changed the scale and the size of it. So this robot scoop, right? The little nose pieces, right there where the nose is, this cute little nose thing. That's these guys right here, this little handle. We wanted this to be, and especially because I was going to be playing with it, we wanted this to be some kind of interesting, like, what if I change the scale? What if I change the orientation of it? What if I turn it upside down? What if I just scale in one direction, right? Because there's 3 axes, you can go in different directions. So case in point, like this piece that's back here, like that's totally our little pizza guy. Where'd that little pizza thing
That
go?
little pizza scooper, pizza.
There it is.
What do you call it?
Paddle. So we called it paddle. Yeah. So that's this one.
Man,
right?
you get a lot of mileage out of that paddle. I'm impressed with. I'm like, that's the paddle. Wow.
Yeah. Like this one. Wait for it. Right. So our Batmobile. I love this thing. Is that trademark? Can I say that thing? Right. So this whole piece right here on the front, I'll kind of outline it. This is that paddle.
Yeah.
Right. So you can see it all in there. Right. And then I've just added other little things to it. So get in, like, you know, as much as we don't get to play with ZBrush in here, you know, if you've got something that's like hard surface like this, start changing the scale. You may not be able to sculpt on it. Well, that's not entirely true. You could totally sculpt on these things. That's, you know what, that's an extension activity. We'll get into that one of these days.
Nice.
Don't sculpt on these though, because it'll ruin the other things that are in here. Well, you'd have to make duplicates of it. So there's my insurance warning. That's that kind of thing that's in there. Okay, so you've got a robot that you can control. You've got it all blinged out. It's ready to look good. You have not added anything externally from it, right? Like you haven't brought anything from Blender or ZBrush or Maya or 3D Studio Max or Tinkercad or the Marketplace or any of that stuff, right? And you want to send this over to your buddy so that you can actually like have a robot battle. So what we need to do is we need to get this robot out. I'm going to point off screen, right? It's going out off to somebody else's bits and pieces. So first, save it, compile it and save it, make sure that it works. Now, what I'm about to show you will only work if they have the robot kit. You can't just put it in a vanilla version of Unreal and expect it to work. You're going to get more than your fair share of errors. So with this one selected, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to find it within the content browser down here. Really easy to do that. Hold Control and hit B as in beta, and it will find it in your browser. You right click on it, we can say show in Explorer. Okay, and that is going to bring up a window. So I'm off to the other side here, right? So this is the remote one. This is that one. You can take this file and drag it into another Unreal project and it should work fine. Shouldn't have any problems, right? So if you need to put it on a USB drive or you want to email it to yourself, and they're tiny files. It's only 200 kilobytes. They're itty bitty. This one says 208. This one says 209. I say 200, whatever. Tomato. Right? So you can bring those in there and definitely kind of play with them. For sure. And
it's more like grape tomato, heirloom tomato.
Is that grape juice or is that grape juice? Is that white grape juice?
Is it tomato? Is it tomato grape, a grape, or tomato?
Right.
Discuss.
please leave comments below. Right. So the other thing that we can do is we want to actually customize these things. If you can open this one up, and I will totally be doing a stream on how I talk about customizing this stuff and making it really awesome and fun to play with, but I'll at least kind of give you a primer on this one. So I want this window open kind of off to the side somewhere. If it's on another screen, that's fine. And what I'm going to do is over here inside of my content browser, we need to go to our static meshes and then the robot. And inside of here, you can literally, one last double check. I don't want any of these selected. Like I don't want any of this selected at all. If anything's going to be selected, it needs to be the power cord, but the rest of it should not be. What I'm going to do is let's add in like a unicorn horn. So if I click and drag this in here, boop, now that unicorn is in there and you can see that it's down here at the very bottom. You can give it a name if you want to. That's totally fine. Come here.
Okay.
And that unicorn horn is going to be right there. And then you can go ahead and just kind of add these things to it. Oh, let's turn my rotation off. There we go. We can add this to it. And this is literally just something that you can put on the front of or the back of your object, however you want to do this. Like that. The last thing that I will mention really quick is you can change all of the materials that are on here. Again, if you click on this, you're going to get a whole host of lots and lots of materials. So if you want to get something specific, make sure that you go into your Learning Kit games, and there's a material library in here. Okay, so this is in games. The pieces are in robots. The materials are in games. So you can open up this one. Inside of here, we have things that glow. We were doing glowing yesterday. Y'all remember that?
Oh, when you turn the lights off.
When I turn the lights off. Yeah. Totally glow.
Oh, it's like, you know, black light Rocket League.
That would be cool. That would be a lot of fun. And what is even more impressive is that in Unreal 5, those emissives will actually light up the world much better. Like they will look really, really cool. So that's the thing.
Wow.
All right. So then just don't turn on nanite, otherwise they won't work. Case in point. I just want to put that out there because I did that the other day. It was wrong. So we have those. So we have our emissives. We have quite a few of them in here, right? We also have gradients that you can put in here too. The gradients are a lot of fun to kind of play with. And then we have our tileable ones. So case in point, my favorite one is this ladybug one, right? So I can take that ladybug one and I can actually drag that onto, scroll down here, right? We have all these little elements over here. So I have the unicorn horn selected and then these elements, you can just drag these on here and they'll change them. This is going to be much more obvious if I grab this guy. And I know it's this metal brushed metal is this metal that's up here on this one object. So if I drag this, boop, put that on there. Yeah. You actually get little ladybug pieces, which is cool. Right. So later in another video, I want to go into how I kind of think about this and some of the like deeper dive customization things that you can do within here, because that is literally just the surface because it's a material. It's on the.
Oh, we get it. We're getting it. Thank you for the further detail and explanation on the joke, because that was helpful.
It's an outside joke. I'll be here all week. Be sure to tip your waitress. All right. So there you have it all. That's the ands, ifs, and buts of making robots do the cool stuff in our lesson 5.
So I have a question. Can you like add a new motor and then control that new motor with different keys? Like if you have a sledgehammer you want to add to smash the other robot into smithereens, can you put like, you know, the M key and make it run that motor?
First of all, I think you need to go to therapy, but yes, we can. We can totally
duly noted.
Put that on the docket. Okay, so yeah, let's do that. We've got a little bit of time. We can totally make that stuff happen.
I mean,
so
I need to get have to do it, but if you can, I mean,
oh yeah, it's totally possible.
I mean, I just asked the question, but
it's the thing.
We're getting a free tour here. Let's do it.
Let's do the thing. All right. So I'm inside my robot actual, for those that are taking notes, right? So inside of my actual robot, I can add more motors for things, whatever you kind of want to make, right? So over here under my add components, I need to get a motor. So BP space MOTOR. And this is a motor. Now this is very similar to the ones that are inside of here. The difference is, let's go ahead and add one in here. Select it.
Wild Goat seconded the vote for smashing things. So
there we go.
Yeah, so she helps win this vote here.
I mean, chaos physics. That's another lesson, right? So we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to put this on the front. This is going to be ridiculous because I can, right? So on the front of our unicorn horn here. So when I'm placing these, pro tip, check like every single angle. Like I'm I rotate around my object more than I actually place the object 100% of the time, right? So now it's up here on the front of it. Now this motor isn't actually connected to like anything as far as being like physically attached. So it can float out here. Like, don't be afraid to like, put something way up here. It does have physics on it. So what that means is it's got some weight to it. So that is something that you do have to worry about. So if you make it too top heavy, which I'm totally going to be doing here, by the way, that's exactly what I'm doing here. That's totally becomes a problem. Right. So now we have the motor in here. Because we have the motor in here, we can go into the event graph. I'm going to find just a blank spot down here at the bottom. What do we want to use? The M key is what we're going to use here.
Sure.
All right. So I'm going to right click and I'm just going to hit 1 on the keyboard and select the number 1. And then with this node selected, come up here and then change this to M. So now when I press the M key, something is going to happen. Well, what is it that we want to happen? We want said motor to actually spin. So let's grab our motor. Bring it over here and let's say run motor.
Okay. Pulling in some of our lessons from the past.
Right.
Our run motors.
So when we press this, we're going to run that motor. Well, how fast do we want that motor to spin? In which direction do we want it to spin?
Ooh, I'm getting excited here. This is fun.
Right. So this little notch was put on here for a reason, right? So we can go counterclockwise with negative numbers, and we can go clockwise positive numbers. So let's have it go clockwise. So let's set in here something like, let's go 30. I don't want to go too fast just yet. I know
that's
better.
Exactly what I was going to say. 30 million.
That was 30 million, give or take a million.
Yeah.
Right. So now that we've got this motor running, we want it to maybe stop when we let go of the button. So when we release this, we want to go ahead and stop motor. Whoop.
Oh, this is genius.
Now, here's the thing that we run into. Because we have the antenna in here, we've got a stop motors in the antenna, and then we have the stop motors macro. For those that are taking notes, we have been using the macros for these robots. This motor is not connected to that antenna.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I want that to be very clear. This is not connected to that antenna. So the other thing we can do too is if we actually pull off the motor and we say stop, we see that we only get one of these. And that is because we are no longer accessing the grid. We're just accessing what's inside of our motor right here. So that motor has got a stop motor on it. There's a very big distinction that I want to make sure that you understand. So let's go ahead and put that in there. And then whether or not we want this motor to kind of coast to a stop or not, I'm just going to have it like stop. So let's say compile. We'll go ahead and save that. So this, comment that out. So I'll call this what? Front motor. This is the one that's on the front. Oh goodness.
Motote.
Motote. It's a motote now.
It's I like the motote.
So make sure that we compile and save it. And then I'm going to drag. Whoops, not that one. This one. There we go. I'm going to drag this one off to the side. And
you need some sort of
little motor up here.
Yeah, let's put some sort of stick on that. Or are you going to just prove that it works first?
Now you'll notice that there's like this red box around here. And that's fine. It's supposed to be there. Don't worry about that. It's totally okay. That's a feature, not a bug. This is a bug color. That is a feature. That's what's going on there.
Ooh, nice one.
You give me improving. This is what happens.
Yeah,
I blame you.
That is a bug.
Right. There you go. All right. So now let's go ahead and drag this out of the way because we don't need it. And let's actually put the camera right here so we can see this. So when I hit play, make sure that we click inside the viewport and I hold the M key. Look at that. And it starts to spin. And when I let go, it stops.
Ooh, come on, put a hockey stick on it.
We have a hockey stick?
No, but you can make one. You just said you can make anything out of anything.
This is true. I could. All right, so we've got our motor here. Let's go back to the viewport. I want to attach something to the motor, right? We don't have a sledgehammer, but I could make a sledgehammer. We're going to make this simple though. So inside of our Bling Box, so inside of the robots section here, we're going to come down to our static meshes inside of our robot. So we have all this nifty stuff that happens to be inside of here.
This is like a peek into our working sessions.
Yeah,
come on, man, go get it. I know you can do it. Just do it.
Do
I'm waiting here while you do it. Go get it.
Right. Let's see here. What should we use? Let's use it. I really like these things because you can use these for like everything. It's great. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one of these wings. I'm going to go ahead and drag it in here. And when I drag this in here, because I just was dragging it into the viewport, two things happened. One, because that motor was selected, it attached it to the motor. In this case, that's a good thing. If it's not actually attached to it, so let me just detach it here real quick, right? You can actually grab it and then actually attach it to the motor, boop, like that. And now it's attached to it. So when the motor spins, this thing is going to spin. Now, something that's important to understand is this has collision on it and the body has collision on it. So right now, this is going to cause a conniption and you're going to have all kinds of rather entertaining things happen, right? So what I wanted to do is actually move this up to the actual robot motor. Well, there's actually a really easy way to do this. With this selected up here in this little section here where it says location, you'll notice that we've actually got values in here. And that happened as soon as we actually had drugged this into the world or into this viewport. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this little tiny, let me zoom in on it, this little tiny yellow arrow. So this says reset to defaults. And when I click on that, it'll actually put it at the 000 location in reference to the actual motor because the motor is the parent.
Nice.
Hopefully that makes sense. So now
that would really come in handy at like adventure parks and stuff like that, where you can just like automatically just reconnect to your parent.
Oh, that's where you're going with that. Okay. I was like, what is he talking about? I'm going to F and zoom in on this. So now this is kind of lopsided. I'm going to start it at least somewhat not lopsided. This is going to be really silly, by the way. Again, this thing got mass on it, so this is going to be rather entertaining. I'm also, because I can, and we're only a minute over, so we're going to go over here. Yeah, we're going to change this to like 60.
The finale.
File save.
This is fun. Oh man, this is what gets me excited about this.
So
I can't wait to see what happens here. Everyone predict in your mind what's going to happen, and then let's see what happens.
If it doesn't fall over forwards. Oh, okay. Now I'm not holding anything at this point. Check it out. The motor is actually spinning. Like I said, it has physics on it. So if I hold the M key, it just doesn't have
not enough.
Oh, there it goes. I had to click in there. There we got it. Yes. Yes.
Dude, you got to slice that ball.
Wait, come here. Now, this is the tricky part because I have to hold M and I have to use the controller to actually make this thing move.
Oh, Wild Goat says, mow the lawn. You've made a lawnmower. Oh, boy. See, this is like when I say robotics includes belly laughs. This is where it comes from when you're bouncing. Oh, man.
Am I holding my mouth right? Because this is really hard to do. So I'm controlling the camera with my mouse. I'm holding the M key down, and we could go for it. Okay, let's actually do something to make our lives a little bit easier. We're totally going into this. All right, we're going to go into the event graph. So right now I have to hold this down, and that's not awesome. I don't want to have to do that. I think, yeah, let's do it this way. I'm going to disconnect the released, and what I'm going to add in here is a flop. Okay.
Oh boy, you're really
going. When I press it, it's going to start the motor, and then when I press it again, it's going to stop the motor. That's going to save me a little bit of stretching. I've got giant hands, thankfully.
Bonus there.
Right? Okay, so let's back this up. I hit play, click in here, right? So now if I hit the M key, and I'm not touching anything, right? I'm snapping with both hands. Now I can actually control this a little bit easier.
Hi-ya!
Right? So I can then hit the M key again, and it'll stop spinning. I can still control it. Right.
I like that little toggle trick. You'll flip.
It saved a lot of smashed fingers on keyboards.
Yeah.
And things, right? So yay, we learned a little new one today.
Oh, dude, that was fun. Thank you for like taking us down that little bit of a rabbit hole. So we're definitely gonna have probably a 4-hour live stream where we just keep challenging you to add one more thing.
Yeah, actually, that would be a lot of fun to get a good group of people and just, can you do this? And I will tangent for an hour or something. Like if we can get a good group of, I don't know, 15, 20 people, like that would be, I'm 100% behind that.
Yeah. Get that bracket going.
Make it do the thing.
The robotics tournament. Well, I definitely see robotics tournaments happening. And that's a great opportunity here. Like if you have this kit and everyone could build robots and they could submit them into like the competition, who's ever running the competition, and they could decide which robots compete against each other. They can combine them all in that way. So you can use this kit for, participation that includes people from around the world, where you can combine it into your main project and do that. So the robotics kit, learning kit, Available in the Unreal Engine Marketplace, created by Clever Lake Studios. Ian Southwell, Gallon Shadow, thank you so much. You've contributed such a ton of awesome work to this project, and I think the world is going to absolutely love working with it. So thank you for all your hard work, and everybody give it a try and let us know. Like, we're here to kind of make this better for you and make it more fun. And so you'll see some updates from us. Hopefully we've got some ideas on what we want to add next. But if you have a thought, if you're sticking around still and you have a thought of what we can add next, put a comment or tag us on Twitter and let us know what you think. And we'd love to continue to improve this and have it meet your needs and make it great for everybody involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And it was totally worth going 5 minutes over for that. So thank you.
I thought so. I was going to do it. You couldn't stop me.
Yeah, I didn't. I just I tried to flip flop. It wouldn't work. I tried the M key. It didn't work. You had full control. Cool. All right, everybody, we're going to sign off. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned. We have more live streams on the Robotics Kit that shows you a lot of the cool extension activities and customization that you can do. So join us for those, and thanks. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.